All right, well, we can go ahead and get started then. Welcome to Big Mountain Data and Dev Conference, day one, Thursday, session at 3:30. This is How to Give a Technical Presentation by Aaron Cutshall, and I'm going to let him take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Charity. Appreciate it. So, funny thing, I've had a lot of people ask me, well, how do I give a technical presentation? How do I go up and give the presentations that you give? And so I had some thought to it and put together on how we actually go about giving a technical presentation. But there's an interesting side note that I wanted to share with you. Jerry Seinfeld made a quite astute observation. He said that according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. All right, sounds like you and I, right? Number two is death. Death is number two. Does that sound right? This means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than doing the eulogy. And I think there's a lot of people that would probably agree with that. So before I get started and go any further, you're probably wondering just who is this guy? So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, I am an enterprise data architect for Health First. It's a health insurance company for New Yorkers. And even though it is based in New York, as you might imagine, I am actually in the sunny state of Florida. When I was in Indiana, I was the past local group leader for the Indy Pass chapter. And so that was quite an interesting experience. And that led me into being able to go to various events and speak at SQL Saturday, et cetera. And I've been doing this since about 2012. I did get my bachelor's of computer science at Ball State University, and I have a master of computer information systems from University of Phoenix. And I was a glutton for punishment. When I got into healthcare, I went back and got a Master of Science in Health Informatics to round that out. I also did achieve a certification in SQL Server for 2016, just last year. And I've been doing this for about 30 plus years. I won't tell you just what the plus part means. Also, to give you an idea of the experience that I've had in public speaking, I was also an adjunct instructor at various colleges. I taught at the Ball State University, at Harrison College. Back then it was originally Indiana Business College, and then later it became Harrison College. I also taught at Ivy Tech Community College, and also at Brown Mackie College in Indianapolis. And this all prepared me for being able to put together this presentation for you. So now here's something I want you to consider. Mark Twain said there were only two types of speakers in the world, the nervous and the liars. Well, I have to admit, I am nervous. I'm not a liar. So you're probably thinking, me speak? Are you kidding? Why would I want to do that? So why should I speak? It's actually one of the best methods for personal growth. Myself, I am an introvert like a lot of other tech guys are, and this has helped me to overcome some of that to a degree. So in doing so, it helped me to build extra confidence, especially when I'm speaking in front of a large group or in front of a group that I can't see the audience for. But you might be thinking to yourself, I don't have anything to tell. I can't say anything that someone else hasn't already said. But you do have something unique to teach. And that's because every one of us is unique, and every one of us has something unique to tell. We'll also learn during the process of speaking. Whenever I teach something, I learn it better. There's also some other great benefits that, including you get to meet really interesting people. Now, obviously, in the virtual world right now, it's a little difficult, but still, you get to meet really, really interesting people and get to learn from them. You really get to learn more about your topic. When you go to do the research for your presentation, that's when you really learn a lot about yourself. And more importantly, you learn lots about yourself. I learned a lot more that I am more capable of doing things than I ever thought of possible, such as speaking to you right now. And besides, it's tons of fun. It's a blast to be able to do this. So you're asking yourself, how do we do this? How do we get started? Well, here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to learn about how to create the presentation, which includes selecting a topic, creating your outline for it, gathering your materials so that you can make it all cohesive, creating the presentation itself. And then we're going to focus on knowing how to give your presentation and prepare yourself for that presentation. Overcome what people call the speaker anxiety. Well, I'll give you some tips on giving the presentation itself. And most importantly, getting and using feedback, because this is what allows you to grow. This is what allows you to become better and better each time. And most importantly, I want you to set a date for your next presentation, because if you don't do it, if you don't set a date, it'll always be over the horizon. So setting that date is really, really important. So first of all, when you go to select a topic, first of all, you want to pick something useful that you can share. It doesn't have to be unique. It doesn't have to be new. It doesn't have to be even that novel, but it's something that you know that you're comfortable with, that you can share with others. It could be something like, I just learned something really cool and I'm going to share that. Or it could be something that I wish someone had taught me a long time ago. Make sure, though, it's applicable to your audience. After all, if you really want to talk about cooking, for example, and doing a cooking presentation at a conference like this, while it may be kind of interesting, it may not be widely acceptable. So you want something that's applicable to your audience. You also want to incorporate personal experiences with your topic, and it really helps your audience to relate to both you and the topic. So it makes it more personal for them, and it sticks in their minds more. Now, don't worry if it's already been done before. I know this particular topic has been covered by other people, and they have different takes on it. But remember, your perspective is unique from all other speakers. That's because you yourself are unique from others. And because of that, you will help someone else who actually needed your viewpoint, who needed to look at it in the way that you do to be able to understand it. I mean, otherwise, there would be a lot fewer presentations and speakers in the world if that were the case. If it was just a one and done and that's it, then it wouldn't go very far. But because we're all unique, we all have different perspectives, we all have something that we can share. Now, how do we get started? First of all, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Do I have knowledge about this topic? Is this something that I'm fairly familiar with? Is this something I have extensive knowledge of? Or if it's something that's quite large, how about a subtopic of that? Do I have knowledge and experience about that? And more important than you would realize, am I passionate about this topic? Because it's the passion that you have for your topic and for your presentation that will really grab people. Just a dry resuscitation of facts is not going to do it for most people. They want that passion to cement it into themselves. Also, you want to know, does my audience care about this topic? Obviously, this is a topic that you care about, otherwise you wouldn't be here in this session today. Am I right? Now, after you select your topic, you want to establish some goals. So do you want to teach a technique? Is it something that you want to show people how to do? Do you want to solve a problem, perhaps a problem that others have or that you once have and you figured out how to solve it yourself? Do you plan to give a demonstration of a solution or of a coding technique or of something else like a monitoring tool for query performance? That would be a great thing to do. So what are your objectives? Once you identify those objectives, that will help you narrow your focus on how you're going to give your presentation. The other thing is, what do you expect from the audience? What do you hope for them to achieve as a result of your presentation? As for myself today, I hope that you will be able to give presentations and to feel more comfortable in doing so at the end of this presentation. I like this diagram here because it allows us to see that there is an interposition of the topics that you know, the topics that you love, and the topics that your audience care about. And the juxtaposition of those three things together is where you want to pick your topics. Now, of course, as your audience changes, your topics may change. But still, it's that juxtaposition is what's really going to cement it for you. Now, the first thing we'll want to do is to create an outline. Now, when I was in high school, my English teacher taught us how to do outlines, and I'm sure that you've probably had others teach you an outline. But let's go over that again because it's really, really important because it becomes like the skeleton of your presentation that everything else hangs on. So the outline is your plan for the presentation. And as you know, if you go into something without a plan, then it's not going to work quite as well. It ensures that you have a logical progression from topic to topic because you've planned it out ahead. You can go from point A to point B rather smoothly without any gaps or without losing anything. It helps you to keep focused on your goal. For myself, if I didn't have a plan, if I just got up here and rambled for about an hour, I would go all over the place and you would walk away feeling really lost and confused. And I wouldn't get much out of it myself. So this helps me to keep focused on my goal. It also helps keep the audience focused so that they know what to expect. They know what is coming and also they know where they've been, where they're going, and so they have a plan and an anticipation of where you're going to go. So a presentation without a plan is not a good thing because your audience loses focus. You yourself will lose focus. And it becomes a waste of everybody's time because everyone walks away unsatisfied. So the outline will ensure that your presentation will cover all of the points that are needed and only what's needed. That way you don't introduce something else and cause more confusion or questions. It will also help keep your audience engaged because they have this step-by-step plan that's going along, and it helps them to again, be engaged as to what's coming around the corner. It also helps to fulfill the goal that you have in giving the presentation, and that is of teaching your audience something that you work very hard to put your presentation together for, and you want to make sure that that objective is met. So how we create the outline is we start with an introduction. And with the introduction, we have some opening remarks, kind of like what I did with Jerry Seinfeld's remark there. And this becomes the icebreaker. And it's a great place to put in your speaker introduction. We also then cover the purpose summary. And this is what the primary reason for the entire presentation is for. This would be like your agenda. And so in that agenda, you would preview what your main topics are. And so that would be, your various topics, 1, 2, 3, etc. And then you start into the body of your presentation. And incidentally, the body of that presentation is going to follow the very same topics that you gave in the preview, except we're going to go into more detail for each and every one of the topics. Also, you'll notice that in each of these topics that I have at least 2 items, and it's better to have 2 or more items for each detail. As my English teacher taught me that if you have only 1 point in a topic, then there's no point in breaking it out. Now, the topic should be comprehensive enough that you want to cover all the material, but you don't want to get too detailed in it because you don't want to lose people. If it was necessary to go into some detail, then maybe you want to consider breaking it up into multiple presentations. And at the end, you want to wrap it up with a conclusion. And that conclusion includes a review. The review is basically a recap of what you presented in the presentation. As it was said before, you want to tell them what you're going to tell them, and tell them what you told them, because that repetition also helps to cement it in our minds. You also want to show that the presentation fulfilled the purpose that you were trying to show. That way, you can then show that here's what I was going to teach you, and here's what I taught you, and then that way you can make a call to action. And in your closing remarks, it gives you an opportunity to tie everything together. After you create your outline, then you want to gather your materials. Now you want to select material that supports your outline. Obviously, bringing in material that doesn't fit with the outline, doesn't fit with the plan, isn't going to help it. So that plan, creating it ahead of time, helps you to focus on what materials you're going to gather. Obviously, you want to draw upon your own knowledge and experiences. This is what helps make the topic relatable to your audience, because you, as the presenter, are making that relationship. They are looking to you to see what your experiences are and how it impacts you, and that will help them as well. This research also will then allow you to identify gaps or missing information that you may then want to search for or to build upon. One thing I would caution you is to make use of reputable sources. I know there is a lot of questions where you can get material. Well, with the web, it's really, really easy, but you want to make use of industry vendors and renowned industry leaders. So if your topic is in SQL Server, for example, then you've got several sources you can turn to, or if it's in Postgres or MongoDB or whatever the topic is, then you've got various industry sources to go to. You can also take advantage of published works. This includes books and magazines, and a lot of those have very great material in them. I would caution you to be wary of blogs and Wikipedia. The reason for this is that blogs tend to be very, how should I say, contentious sometimes. They're very opinion-based, and unless they are very strict in how they present the material, like there are still some blogs that I will use because I know that the writers of those blogs are very conscientious about their work and they're well known in the industry. Those are probably okay, but some of those are very, very, how should I say, it depends on how they put the material together and whether they back it up with facts. So just be careful of that. And Wikipedia, same thing. The information in Wikipedia is not always backed up by sources. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So just be careful with that. One thing you want to do, though, is always give credit when you're providing your source references, because that way those who created the information, who published it, they get the credit for that. Especially when you're quoting phrases or you're paraphrasing someone else's work or other major contributions to your material. You want to give that credit to it. Photos and images, definitely, if you borrow someone else's graphics. Now, if you create the image yourself or take the photo yourself, that's okay. You can do with it what you want. But when you're using someone else's, especially when you're just simply borrowing it and they may not necessarily have granted permission, you definitely want to give credit to that. Then it comes time to actually create the presentation, and that's putting it together. You start out with your abstract. The abstract is really going to be kind of like your sales pitch for the presentation. If you recall, when you were looking through all of the sessions for today's conference, and you decided, oh, I want to look at this one and look and the paragraph that was in there that told about that presentation and how it's going to impact you. That's your sales pitch. That's your abstract. It's like your one paragraph summary of the presentation. So you want to craft that rather well. Because it also introduces your topic and why that topic is important and why someone should pick it out above any of the other presentations that are in the conference. It identifies the goals that you want your audience to get out of that presentation and then what they should know that they should achieve from the presentation. Then you want to create your title page. Your title page in your presentation is kind of like what the purpose of this presentation is. It's kind of like the splash page that you saw when you first came into the room of my presentation. The title should be short, sweet, and to the point. Obviously, the one I have for this is how to give a technical presentation. That's very direct. Now, if you wanted to be use a catchy title, sometimes those work, as long as they're not too obscure. I've used a few of those myself. But you want to make sure that the meaning of the presentation and what you're trying to give doesn't get lost in its catchiness. You also want to be able to include a biography. And the biography helps to establish your credentials and your experience and training. You notice that earlier I went through and explained who I was, what my background was, and this is what helps to establish as a presenter to your audience that you're knowledgeable enough to give this presentation, that they can take comfort in the fact that you know what you're talking about. One thing you want to avoid, though, is personal information such as, where I went on vacation, things about my kids, pets, religion, politics. Those are all things that you want to avoid because they tend to be rather contentious. And in your presentation, you want to create your purpose. And this is going to be your presentation goals. This is your agenda. This is what the audience is going to be looking for to say, well, what's in this for me? What am I going to get out of this? And so it helps to set their expectations appropriately. You also want to identify your major topics. And this is where you're going to further refine each topic into further detail. This is your outline of what you want that presentation to include. And of course, you want to include your supporting material as needed. And in your presentation, you always want to give a midpoint review. This allows this to serve as a logical break, especially when you're giving a lot of material, you're giving a lot of screen slides, a lot of graphs or charts or whatever. You want to give the audience a visual break from all of that and to kind of recap on what they've learned so far. It also helps to give you a transition between main portions of your presentation. And then at the last part of it, you want to provide your closing. This is going to be where you review your major topics. Again, here's what I told you about part of the presentation. And you want to highlight important takeaways. This is what you want your audience to get out of the presentation. So when they walk out of the room, you want them to remember this part, if nothing else. And it's also a good idea to give a reference slide if you want them to have further study, especially if the slides are going to be available and you want to give them links to other material and other references to books, etc., that would help them to understand the topic even better. And more importantly, you want to present your call to action, especially in something like this, where you want to learn how to give a presentation. The call to action, unsurprisingly, is I want you to set a date for when you give your presentation. Pick a conference, pick a time for you to give your presentation and stick to that. Because if you don't have that goal, then nothing will happen. Because without that call to action, it will always be, I wonder if I should do that one day. Someday I might do that. And then it never happens. And remember, this call to action is going to be the whole purpose of your presentation. Whatever your topic is, that's the purpose of your presentation, to make that call to action. I always include a question slide. This is going to be a point at the end of the presentation where it gives the audience an opportunity to ask additional questions or questions that they may have had on their mind, or in this case of a virtual presentation, where the moderator may be collecting questions to present at that point. It also gives you a place where you can provide complete contact info, because it's probably going to be, other than the initial slide of your presentation, the title slide, it's probably going to be the one slide that will stay on the screen the longest while questions are being asked. And so you can give that additional contact information so that people can note it down for further reference. One thing to remember is that consistency is paramount. However you put your slides together, you want it to be consistent. You don't want to do something like this where I may talk about delivery content and then attention to various portions of the content, and then have, oops, here's something that popped up here at the top, my slide style, transitions, fonts, and animation. You want to be careful with that. Yeah, you're probably thinking, yeah, that was a mistake, but no, I did that on purpose. But let me talk about the slide style. Notice that I've used a white background and black text. It provides the greatest contrast so that everything is easily seen. Notice that the fonts are large and easily read. So this helps make things so that people who are in the back of the room can see it. This is more pertinent when you're in a large presentation area and your screen may be further away from some people than it is others. Also, I tried to minimize the animation that's used. Having some animation in a presentation is fine. It keeps your audience engaged. But if you have it all over the place, and especially if it's not consistent, you're going to lose people in the noise, the visual noise, so to speak. Your delivery method is something that you would also want to keep consistent. And also the attention that you give to various portions of your content. Again, consistency is going to be key to this. It also helps to set your audience expectations, because if they see one way that you're presenting and then you switch methods, it's going to confuse them or even lose them completely. Again, avoid flashy or over dramatic animation. I've seen some presentations that used every trick in the book that PowerPoint had available to them, and I couldn't follow anything. It was just like watching a very fast, noisy cartoon, because I didn't get any information out of that. And that's what would happen if you try to get too flashy with it. Your message is the star, not your PowerPoint skills. So remember that, because too much flash is going to reduce the impact of your message. People will remember your flashy presentation and not the content of the presentation. So your message really is the star. And again, be mindful of using too many distracting colors. I've used basically two here, black and white. Makes it really easy and it's not distracting. Remember that a simple and effective presentation is far more important than a flashy one, because it's what your audience is going to be seeing. It's what your audience is going to be learning from. Now, in some presentations, you may need to give a demonstration. So I'll give you a few tips on that one. For example, have backup screenshots just in case, because anything can happen. I've given presentations numerous times. Anything and everything will happen, that's for sure. Also, use really accessible test data, such as AdventureWorks or something else of the nature. Never, ever, ever use real data or real environments. I've actually seen presentations where people connected to their work machines and did things in their production environment. I was just astonished at that. I couldn't believe it. That's something you never really want to do. Not only that, but it could cause problems with you at work. Also, if you have to do any code testing or show code examples, script it wherever it's possible. Typing in your demos increases the chances of something going wrong. I've had that happen to me. I thought I was going to be okay. It was just a simple thing, and things went wonky. Again, if anything can go wrong, it will. If it's possible, when giving a demonstration, do it on a virtual machine. For one thing, it's easy to give an easy restart. At the end of your presentation, you can just close the virtual machine and restart it up from the beginning, and you're good to go again. So that's one thing you can do. I also like to use a special slide demo, because then that way it shows, hey, guess what? We're going to do a demonstration. Also, remember your font visibility, especially when you're going to show another tool, because not everybody's going to be able to see what you're seeing. Because like right now, we're sitting in front of our screens, so it's probably not so bad. But if you're in a live presentation and people are sitting in the back of the room, it's going to be harder for them to see it. So use a larger font size if possible, like 14 point or larger if possible. And also adjust your contrast so that you can, if possible, so that you can have a dark color and a light background. It makes it easier to see, especially on a presentation screen. I like to use a tool called Zoom It. And I know it's probably fallen out of fashion in some circles, but I found it really, really useful, and I like it a lot. So get and use Zoom It. In fact, you see that there is a link on here so that when you get the PowerPoint slides, you can actually go to that link and get Zoom It. So speaking of Zoom It and demonstrations, here's an example of a live demo screenshot that serves as an intermediary between the PowerPoint presentation and my demo. So I'm going to show you a demo of Zoom It. I'll bring up my demo, and here we go. So this is Zoom It. It's this is the control panel for it. And what it allows me to do is that when I go into Zoom It, I can say, well, I'm going to do a control 1, and that is going to control what I'm going to show here. So if I go ahead and say, pass that through and do control 1, then I can zoom in. I can do things such as drawing boxes. I can draw lines, and I can just draw squiggly lines wherever I want. And this is what Zoom It allows me to do. I can adjust the zoom, etc. So this is a demonstration of Zoom It. Okay, now we're going to have a midpoint review. And as promised before, this is what we're going to do as a recap. And so basically we're going to say, here's what we have covered so far. We talked about selecting a topic. We also talked about creating the outline itself, about gathering materials to support your presentation, and creating the presentation itself. Now, up next, we're going to talk about preparing for the presentation, overcoming speaker anxiety, and actually giving the presentation itself. And also, more importantly, we're going to talk about getting and using feedback. And before I go any further, I want to see if there are any questions that we have so far. Can you help me out, Charity?
Yes, sorry, I was having trouble getting unmuted. Here I am. Okay. I'm not seeing any questions so far on here. Let me take a look at our other chat. Let's see. I don't see any pending questions so far.
Okay.
If there's anyone that needs or has a question, please feel free to put it in the Big Mountain Data Room 3 chat, and I can put this in here for you to get answered.
All right, awesome. Now, just so you know that the fact that even though there aren't any questions, that usually means one of two things. One, either you're doing a really great job in presenting your material, which I would like to think so, and so that there aren't any questions on it so far. Or two, perhaps maybe your audience isn't quite aware of what questions they need to ask yet, or they're not sure of what they need to ask. So as you go along, as you prompt for questions, help them out with that. Obviously, we'll have another opportunity at the end of this presentation to cover questions, and I'd love to hear from you on that. Okay, let's go into the next part. Now we're going to talk about preparing for the presentation. And as the old joke goes, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? You practice, practice, practice. And I really mean practicing out loud. If you've never given a presentation before, sometimes standing in front of a mirror, speaking out loud really helps. A lot of us will think that, you know, I do this in my mind, I can run through it in my mind, but you will find that you go through it at a much faster pace than actually speaking it out loud. So that will give you a better idea of what your true presentation pacing is. So you want to be mindful of timing and how long each portion of the presentation is. If possible, try it with an audience. You know, I've done an audience of my cat. My cat was a great presentation participant when I first started, because even though I didn't get a whole lot of feedback, she didn't really complain when I was speaking. One thing you can do too is if you can video record it, that would also be helpful, because it gives you an idea of your facial expressions and how you're looking during the presentation, so that you can know if you're actually presenting the image that you're wanting to present as you're giving your presentation. Also, if you have demos, one thing you want to do is to practice your demos many times from beginning to end. I don't know how many times I thought, oh, I've got this, no problem, I can just wing it. And that's when problems occur. So going through your demo several times from beginning to end will help you. Also, like I said before, have backup screenshots just in case, because I've been in situations where, guess what? I needed internet connection and internet dropped. So therefore, I can't connect to my machine or can't connect to the website or whatever. So have backup screenshots just in case that you can talk through. And again, I can't stress this enough, never use real data or real environments, especially production environments. Use readily accessible test data. Another reason for this is not only so that you don't booger up or your production data or reveal data that you shouldn't be revealing. Also, it gives people an opportunity to take the same test data that they can access and then go through those demonstrations themselves. That way they get a better handle on it because they can see, here's what you did, here's what I did, I get the same results, therefore I must have done it the right way. So again, use test data whenever possible. Again, typing in demos doesn't work out too well because it will increase the chances of something going wrong. So script it whenever possible. Unless you really want to show how to type in a demo, then that's a different story, but you script it whenever possible. Again, be prepared because things will go wrong. And here are some things that have happened to me. For example, I went to give a presentation and my laptop wouldn't start. I shut it down when I left my home office, went to go give the presentation, and the laptop would not boot up. It became a brick somewhere in between my home office and the presentation. Or you might find that you have no Wi-Fi or internet's not available on the Wi-Fi. I've had this happen to me before. I've also had it where my presentation files got corrupted. And so one thing I do is before I leave the office is that I make multiple backups of my slides. I mean, I take all my scripts, my demos, I put them either, I've put them on OneDrive, I've put them on a thumb drive. I've done everything to make backups of it because if anything could go wrong, it will. And it always does it at the most inopportune time. When you're giving a presentation off-site, pack every cable and adapter that you need. When I go to conferences, I take extras because I never know when someone else might need one. And you can be the savior of the day when you have an adapter that somebody desperately needs for their presentation. Include extra batteries for your remotes and your mouse. I've had times when people say, my remote's not working. I can't advance my slides. What do I do? I said, well, here's a battery for it, or here's an extra remote that you can use. Also, don't forget your business cards, because this is a great opportunity to network, and it gives you an opportunity to interact with other people. And so take your business cards with you. And if you're not in business for yourself or whatever, still take some cards with you so that you can pass along information. It's a quick and easy way to get your name out, so to speak. Something else to keep in mind is before you give your presentation, and in this case is a virtual presentation, you want to have your slide deck and your demos primed and ready. For example, before this one started, I had everything ready a half hour before it began. You want to connect to the presentation session early. I did so 15 minutes early to make sure that everything was good. Perform your headset check, which is good because I found out my earlier headset wasn't going to work. It had too much noise in the microphone. So I was able to switch over to this one. So that's always a good thing to do, check your equipment. Also check in with your session moderator or the assistant because they are going to be your lifeline, like Charity is for me today. Going to be a lifeline in being the connection between you and your audience. Also, self-promote your presentation. Put it out on Twitter. Put it out on, use all the hashtags where applicable. Put it on LinkedIn. Include your event and location information. Spread the word at work with your teams that you're working with. Let those people know. That way they can come out and attend your presentation. Also put it on your personal blog. It's a great place. Also for your abstract. I keep on my website all my previous presentations, and I put them all together there. That way people can reference them easily. Then we come to the big 800-pound elephant in the room, or 800-pound gorilla, 2-ton elephant. Overcoming speaker anxiety. I have found this clip to be quite humorous. The human brain starts working the moment you were born and never stops until you stand up to speak in public. And that is definitely the truth. I don't know why, but put a microphone in front of me and it's like, I can't think anymore. It's actually a term called glossophobia. And it really comes from the fear of being judged. And as you can tell from the graphic there, that the speaker thinks that everyone is looking down upon him. They're larger than he is, and he's in the spotlight. But it's that fear of being judged. Now, keep in mind that no one gives a perfect speech. This one certainly isn't. My next one won't be perfect either. And your speeches aren't going to be perfect. It's a growing process. It's an evolving process. In fact, Ralph Waldo Emerson said that all the great speakers were bad speakers at first. Everyone has to learn and grow into it. So the best thing to do is to face your fears. This is what I did. I could not handle public speaking when I first started. And so I thought, well, maybe if I give presentations on something that I know, like these technical presentations, whether it's be on SQL Server or Postgres, then I can do that. Maybe I can overcome my fears. When you face your fears, you don't focus on real or imagined mistakes. You let it go. I've made mistakes in this presentation, whether you realize it or not, I have, and I'll let it go. I'll learn from it, but I don't let it weigh me down. I don't let it stop me. And remember, your audience is not going to be critical. I'm sure that you, as my audience right now, are not being critical of my speaking skills. Although probably should be, since I'm giving a presentation on how to give technical presentations. But the audience is there to learn. They're not there to judge you. Preparation is key. It really is. It will make everything better. But remember, it's okay not to be perfect. It's okay. Know your material, know your slides and your demos. That's going to be your source of strength right there, is knowing your material, being confident in your knowledge. And practice, practice, practice. With practice comes perfection. It will get closer. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. Therefore, when you do get surprises that normally increase stress, then you can manage it a whole lot better. You can also anticipate questions and have answers ready for those questions. That way you don't get surprised and get mind locked when somebody asks you a question and you can't think of the answer. You'll be prepared for that. And if you aren't prepared, be willing to say, I don't know. I always told my kids that I can answer any question. The answer may be, I don't know, but I can answer it. And so sometimes the answer can be, I don't know, but I'll find out. I will let you know. Or here's how you can find out. That's just as good. And go easy on yourself. You are not going to be the only one speaking. You're not going to be the center of attention for very long. So go easy on yourself and relax. You're going to give a presentation. You're not giving a presentation to the entire country at once. Some things to help you to relax. It may sound silly, but go to the bathroom 20 minutes before your presentation. Make sure that you don't have that Mountain Dew that you drank 20 minutes earlier just ready to come out. Get up and stretch, walk around, relieve your physical tension. That will help you set your mind at ease. And more important, breathe. You're going to need your brain, and your brain depends upon the oxygen. So just breathe, relax, and you'll be fine. One thing to remember is that when you have a live audience, work with the audience. Don't focus too much on individual expressions or on how badly you mess up on your PowerPoint presentation. Talk to people. It helps you to relax and to relate to your audience. It helps them to relate to you as well. I will spend the first 5 minutes when I'm waiting for people to come in the room just talking to those who are already in there, and it helps put everything at ease. And when you do give your presentation, interact with your audience as much as possible. Obviously, in a virtual presentation, it's a little difficult, but in a live audience, interact with them. It makes it go a whole lot easier. And remember, none of us are professional speakers. None of us are professional PowerPoint presentation presenters either. But remember that you are not the focus. Your subject matter is. And you are not on trial to be judged, no matter how many mistakes you make. We all have empathy for speakers who are trying, especially if we know that they're first-time speakers. We are rooting for them. We're not there to judge them. So if you're a first-time speaker and your audience knows that, then they are going to root for you, not put you down for it. The audience is going to have the same empathy for you as you get out there to speak, as you have for those first-time speakers and other speakers who are really trying. And remember, that with practice and repetition, speaker anxiety will diminish, but I can honestly tell you, it will never completely go away. I have a bit of it right now, but that doesn't mean that I have to let it control me, that I have to let it rule over me. Also, before your presentation, set up ahead of time. Check everything out. It's also helpful to shut down distractions, such as your email. Make sure that doesn't pop up. Make sure that you don't have any instant messages. Make sure you're sure your phone is on mute, etc. Also, make sure that your presentation is all ready to go and your demos are prepared. One thing I do too is when I come into a presentation area and I may follow the person that was in there before me, I may customize the area a little bit. I'll put my water bottle over here. I may adjust the keyboard over here, set my laptop just so. Even little things will help make the area yours so that you feel more comfortable with it. One thing you want to do is make sure you have extra water bottles, because when you're speaking a lot, you're going to get thirsty and you will want to drink. And if you don't have that water there, then that's going to be a distraction in your mind that it's going to say, I'm really thirsty, my throat's dry, I want to take a drink. And of course, speaking about it, I want to take a drink right now. So make sure you have extra water bottles available for you. If possible, enlist someone to help you. I do this in live presentations. I'll ask somebody in the audience, or if the conference has a moderator that's in the room, they can pass out any handouts. Now, just a word about handouts is that I tend to not use handouts because they will be distracting, especially if they're handed out at the beginning of the presentation, then everyone's reading that instead of paying attention to what you're saying. So if you do have handouts, do it as they're needed, not at the beginning of their presentation. It's also helpful to have a 15-minute and a 5-minute warning. So I will ask somebody to say, hey, when I've got 15 minutes left, let me know, raise your hand or something. And again, when I have 5 minutes left, because it helps me to keep an eye on my time and know what time I have left. And it's okay to chat with folks before the presentation because it helps everyone, including you, to relax. And relaxation is really, really important. When you go to give your presentation on live presentations, step away from the podium or your laptop or a desk or whatever it is that your laptop is at. I like to walk around a bit, make use of a presentation device, the clicker or remote, so that I can adjust slides. And when I move around, it helps to keep me engaged and the audience engaged as well. That way they're not staring in one spot constantly. One thing I like to do too is if someone is asking a question, and this is really useful in a large audience, is that you want to repeat the question back, because not everyone may be able to hear it the first time. And also it helps to make sure that you understand the question yourself. Something else I like to do, if time permits, is that before I answer the question, I give the question to the audience to see if someone else can answer it. Because again, it gets that audience presentation or audience involvement going so that they're not just sitting there listening to me speak all the time. But again, in a virtual presentation, that's a little difficult. So one thing is to remember that you do have an audience. And yes, I do remember you. I see you. Well, I can't see you, but I know that you're there. And I keep you in mind. So keep your focus on the camera. Like right now, I'm using a web camera. So I keep my focus on that. And also speak clearly and don't get rushed. I have a tendency to get rushed a little bit when I'm running out of time, but that's something I'm working on myself. Also, you don't want to get robotic, because you do have an audience. It's really easy to remember, or to forget that no one is there. You're there by yourself, or you're just speaking to the screen. But you do have an audience, so don't be robotic in your delivery. You're not reciting the Gettysburg Address here. Make use of chat features if available. If not, then your moderator will be able to help you out. This is something that the audience will be able to interact with you on. And so again, the moderator can help with questions like Charity is for me. And periodically stop to answer questions, just as you would with a live audience. Now you may have to make sure that they're in appropriate places, like I did at the midterm point, but this allows the audience to participate if at all possible. And if we have time, which we wouldn't today, but I like to allow the audience to participate in answering those questions. Again, it all depends upon the format that you have. But the number one thing is to be flexible. You want to be ready to focus on particular slides if needed. If there are questions that focus on certain areas, then yes, spend more time on those slides as necessary or on the demonstration. And again, just like that, be ready to skip some things to adjust for time, because you only have so much time to give your presentation. And most of all, have fun. This is meant to be enjoyable. It's meant for you to relax and to show that, yes, I know this information and I can have fun with you and sharing it with you. If you have fun, then your audience is going to enjoy it as well. And you will grow from that experience, because that interaction with the audience in a live setting or even in a virtual presentation, you will grow from the experience of giving a presentation. Again, some things to avoid, such as don't reading from the slides. I know sometimes it's a little difficult, especially when you have these points that are given to you, one after the other. Some people get there in that joining mode and they just read what's on the screen, and it makes it very difficult for people to listen. So don't fall into that trap. Also, avoid the hot topics that you want to avoid in all public presentations, such as politics and religion, because everyone's different. Everyone has their opinion. You want to avoid opinionating or polar topics. You also want to be prudent. You don't want to have gender or racial bias in your presentations, or even things that are just that are not appropriate. You want to be sensible. Don't have any profanity, and avoid inside jokes. Because the problem with inside jokes is that some people may get it, but most of your audience won't, and they'll just fall really flat. Feedback. Feedback is one of the most important parts of a presentation, because it's how you learn how well you're doing and how well you're growing. So you want to get feedback on your subject, your presentation skills, etc. When you're in person, you can do this at the end of the presentation. And you can get session evaluations, whether they're written or electronic. And when you do that, throw out the extremes. I've always get some that are really high and really low, some that are just esoteric, but you want to focus on the average feedback. Winston Churchill said that criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. So that feedback is what allows you to grow. Hillary Clinton said that take criticism seriously, but not personally. If there is truth and merit in the criticism, try to learn from it. Otherwise, let it roll right off you, like water off of a duck's back. And there are certain criteria for effective feedback. You want to make sure that it's credible, trusted, instructive, appropriate, interactive, clear, and helpful. You want to learn what to ignore and what to consider in your feedback. Certainly don't let compliments go to your head, and don't let criticism get to your heart. So in some closing thoughts, we talked about how we can pull this presentation together, about selecting the topic that's appropriate and helpful, creating your outline, which is the plan for your presentation, gathering your materials to support your presentation, and creating the presentation itself to deliver your topic and deliver your message. We talked about putting it on for the preparing for the presentation so that you can avoid surprises. We talked about the speaker anxiety, how you can overcome it, and to relieve the stress that you have in giving a presentation. And of course, we talked about the whole purpose of this whole presentation, which was about giving the presentation, and then getting and using feedback so that you can learn and grow and improve for the next time. And now I want you to make it happen. Here's the call to action. Where can you speak? You can speak at local user groups, local conferences like this one, at national conferences, and many other venue choices. It can be live or virtual, it doesn't matter. I like to jot down notes whenever I get ideas on a presentation so that I can know how I can assemble this presentation. This one came out from a whole bunch of ideas that I assembled together. That way, you can jot down main points or an abstract of your presentation, create an outline, and then flesh it out over time. Practice creating your presentations. As you create more and more presentations, it will get easier. Ask trusted people for feedback before you give a presentation, or present it to an audience if at all possible. Here are some helpful resources for you. That way, when you go to give your presentation, that it's available to you. And also, when you get the slides for this, there's going to be some bonus links for some free ebooks. And I would love your presentation feedback on this. And I would open the mic now for any questions or comments or feedback at this time.
I'm taking a look and seeing what we've got as far as questions or comments. We do have a couple of great comments in here. There's from Michael Warren, says, love all the great speakers. We're bad speakers at first.
Yep.
It looks like several people have liked that, myself included. Love how the bullet points show up in a different order, drives the point home that not focusing on your PowerPoint issues and how important that is. Let's see, I'm not seeing any others here. Let me take a look at our Zoom chat, see if there's any here. Not that I can see. You know, I did want to ask one question actually on a couple things. When giving the presentation in your practice time, how many times do you usually practice it? Is there a special number so that you can get the timing down correctly? What's your go-to amount of times to practice?
I don't set a number on that. I set it for how comfortable I feel, how I fit the time frame, and also how I can allow for some flexibility. Every time if I give the same presentation twice in a row, they're going to be two different presentations because it all depends on the audience. It all depends on the thoughts that come to my mind at the time. But that outline is critical to keep me focused.
That's great. And do you usually use a checklist every time you give a presentation so you have, you know, a set amount of things down to prepare for every time?
I used to, but then I've got to where I know that fairly well now.
Okay, great. So I guess all of us have to work on that.
Yes.
Wonderful. This was a great presentation. Thank you so much, Aaron. This is really helpful, I think, for everyone, especially in this industry. So we really appreciate it.
And if there are any other questions, you can always go to my website at sequelrv.com and take a look at all the presentations that I have there. And I'd love to hear from you.
Well, thanks again, Aaron. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, bye-bye.